welcome to the Mother Days podcast. I'm Teresa Palmer.
And I'm Sarah Wright Olson. Welcome, Daisy.
Woohoo!
We have a wonderful, beautiful, amazing guest with us today, and we are so excited to introduce her. So we're going to jump straight in. We have Nadine Crocker. Did I say that right?
Yes.
I don't want to say it wrong. Okay, great. We have Nadine Crocker, who is a mother, writer, director, actor, suicide survivor. She started the nonprofit Continue On, which is created to elevate mental health and save lives from suicide. The list of things that you are and have done is so long and so amazing. I was like, picking things out from your bio, but I was just like, oh my God, like you're amazing. So thank you so much for being here. And a mama bear, exactly.
Aww. Which is my favorite accomplishment.
That's right.
My bad. I actually met Nadine. How many months ago was this? Was this maybe 6 months ago?
Yeah, well, October.
Okay. So October 2023, at the screening of her incredible movie, Desperation Road. I was so into this film. I was sitting right at the front next to Rachel Bilson, our mutual friend, and the girls had invited me to the screening, and they were like, "We're not going to tell you what it's about. You're just going to show up, and believe me, you're going to love it." I was hooked. I loved it. I was so inspired. I messaged the lead actress, like that night, being like, "You're incredible. Your performance it just blew me away. This movie, I couldn't stop thinking about it." My mate Mel Gibson, he stars in it as well.
Yes,
he was incredible. And you have a very specific tone, and I love it. Everything feels grounded, stripped back, raw, vulnerable, and it really feels like you're striving to find these really human moments between people, and these relationships are fractured and imperfect. And I just thought it was such poetry. Could we start there with your aesthetic, your vision, your way as a filmmaker, and what sort of lit that fire in you?
I mean, everything you said, it kind of made me emotional, because that's literally all I'm ever striving for is like, can we make it feel as real life as humanly possible, so that the people watching who have experienced that possibly in their real life can feel so seen through that. I am a person who has packed a lot of life into 35 years I've been on this planet, and I have a lot of trauma. And truthfully, when working on a lot of these projects, I feel like I see it as a gift, because I've been through so many things and a lot of themes from Desperation Road. And I also know what it is to have nothing. And so I just try and bring, like, the entire time I'm creating these films, I'm hoping that people will empathize and like just see a view outside of their own. And if it feels like you're watching a movie, I just feel like that won't happen, So I'm like, how can I make you feel like you're watching someone's most intimate moments? How can I make you uncomfortable? How can we all push each other to do our best work, And for me, one of my favorite things about filmmaking is the collaborative process. You get all of these incredible artists, and it is so much of trust and faith in each other. And, so I can't take the credit for it. It's really all of my collaborators, to my crew, to my cast, to producers, everybody, who helps make it possible. I just feel so lucky. And I try and create like a little family each set, because, when we all feel really safe, and I think we all feel free to do our best work,
Well, it really, that bleeds into the film. I think the camaraderie and the connection, and it felt like I was just watching real people. And I remember coming out, I said to you, I was like, I don't want to give any spoilers away. But one of the characters, I was like, I was expecting this thing, and I just want to know, like, where do you think they are now? Like, what are they doing in their life now? And I just want to know, like, and then of course, like, there's not going to be a sequel. So I'm just like, I want to know if they're okay, and like what happened. And that is a real testament to such brilliant filmmaking that you leave an audience asking questions and wanting more. And I had to unravel the story with my friends, with Rachel and Olivia. And I was like, oh God, this character. It was so, and also a real beautiful portrayal of motherhood as well. And I know that you're a mama, and I'm sure that that role of being a parent really, it translates when you're working as a filmmaker as well. And that mother-child connection in your film felt so real and something I could really relate to. And I really recommend it to anyone listening to check it out. Can people watch it anywhere right now?
Yeah, Desperation Road is everywhere. It's actually also worldwide. It's now officially in Australia. It's everywhere. So that's really exciting. I know. We just went, it's, finally reached.
It was on the plane. It was on the plane. Oh my gosh. I saw it. And I was like, Mark, it's Nadine's film on the plane from Sydney to LA. I was like, there's Desperation Road. And I saw people watching it. As I'd walk up the aisles, and I saw people watching it, and I was like, yes, oh my gosh, this is so cool. That must feel amazing.
Yeah, it really, I had a few friends send me pictures from a plane, and I really didn't know, Lionsgate and Grindstone has a world of their own where they put it. And so we don't really I don't really know everywhere it's going to go. And so when they were sending me that picture, it was kind of like one of those surreal little girl moments where you're like, I did it. My art is on a plane across the world. I've never even left the country, and my films have, that's the most.
I love it.
Yeah, surreal moments. But yeah, you can watch Desperation Road, Apple, Amazon on planes,
on planes.
I love that. Well, I wanted to ask you it's pretty amazing when you read someone's bio like this, that all the things that you've done, what led you to this place to tell these stories? What was it? Did you love writing? Did you love acting? Was it that you really had this message that you wanted to share? I mean, I know your movie, Continue, is so important, and so much of that message that, what you've done with your nonprofit Continue On, that you're really trying to bring awareness and help with suicide prevention and everything. So can you kind of guide us through a little bit of how you got to this place and why you became this director that you are and came into this field?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as a kid, I didn't really think that this was possible for me. I think when I watched all this art that really moved me, because movies have been my escape since a very young age, I just really only, I think, thought I could be the girl on the screen. I don't know that there was many female directors as I was coming up. And, then I went through what I went through in my 20s, and I would love to say it was only that one attempt and, it was just 23, but really there was a lot of struggle. And it started in my teens with self-harm and a lot of pain. And not fitting in and all of these things. And so, I dropped out of high school and moved to LA on my own at 16, which is batshit. I still think, I'm who is that chick? And whoa, she was brave. But I still see glimpses of her, because I'm also well, who invests their life savings into a movie when you've never been behind a camera before and ends up homeless to finish a movie? So I still see glimpses of her. But, it kind of just started as scenes in an acting class, because I wanted to kind of work through my pain or some of my past and kind of try and figure out if there was a way I could help people through it, And then as I kept performing these scenes in class after class, so many people would keep coming up to me and saying me too, that's part of my struggles. I've never really felt safe to tell people. And then people started asking me to write scenes for them. And I'm just okay, I just kind of started to realize that through art, it could be a vessel to start much bigger conversations. And I've always known film is one of the only things that can like engage someone's empathy, whether they want to or not. Because you can't watch a person's journey and not empathize and go on the journey. Like even when and we've seen it, like, right. So many films have the leads are villains technically now, yet we're rooting for them the whole way through, because when you are on someone's journey, like you can't help but root for them and empathize and like get on the journey. So I just really started to feel like that was going to be my chance or my place to create change and like to use my voice for helping and healing. And, you know, truthfully, like I've kind of become more vocal about this before. I hadn't told a lot of people, but I got dropped by all my reps while I had a 2-week-old baby in my arms on maternity leave, which by the way is illegal. And I'll never forget the moment I'm holding my son, who's literally only 2 weeks old. You have like a deflated tummy. You feel so weird in your own skin.
Vulnerable.
Yes. And you're kind of like, well, I don't even know what the future is. And like, by the way, my son had colic, so he also cried 8 to 10 hours a day. And so like,
my God.
I know it was like a lot.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there as I've just gotten him to sleep and finished breastfeeding. And I look down at my phone and I have an email, and it's my reps dropping me after like
an
8-year relationship. An email.
Wow.
And it basically said I just like, they didn't know what they were going to do with me anymore. Like I didn't have, like I didn't have heat anymore. And I'm like, I just filmed 2 movies. Yeah. You know that where you're like, heat?
I hate that word. I hate momentum. This is what I hate. I hear this, like, it doesn't really move the meter. It didn't really move the meter. I'm like, fuck the meter. Who cares about the fucking meter? Like, if you're enjoying your work and you're doing art.
Meter? Like, who's
the meter reader?
Yes.
Who's the meter reader?
Because like, I disagree with you, you know? And that's like, and the craziest part to me is like, I'm like, I have more heat now that like there was a 2-year window where I didn't book a single thing and you guys stayed with me. But like literally all it took was me like gaining weight to have a baby and like being in this like adulthood like moment, by the way, still 27 years old. And you're basically saying like, I'm your hot young client and you don't know what you're going to do with me anymore. I'm like, oh, I'm still the same person. I'm just holding a baby, you know? But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And like, that's why I started telling this to people, is because like sometimes the setbacks that feel like rock bottom are not, they're pushing you in a completely different direction. And if I had something to lose, I don't think I would have admitted how bad I wanted it. And I had nothing else to lose. And there was really no one to tell me I couldn't do it anymore, except for everybody. But you know, so I was like, forget it. I'm going to do this. And that started the process. And I had this script written for a really long time and no one would read my writing who was my reps either, you know, and they just kind of saw me as one thing. So it was kind of liberating that all of a sudden these people who only saw me as one thing weren't there anymore. And I'm like, well, I guess I can be whatever I want now. Yeah. And whoever comes onto my team after this will know me as what I become. And so that kind of started the whole journey. And, you know, I had gotten halfway through writing Continue and then kind of like chickened out. And this was before they dropped me in all of those things. And Robin Williams' death is actually what made me pick my script back up and realizing like there is so many people that we lose that are like the brightest light. And I'm tired of it, you know? And that kind of lit a fire in my belly and started this path. And then my reps disappearing helped me thrust forward. And then we just invested our life savings, raised every dime of capital, did every humanly possible thing. And the universe just kind of really helped us along the way, though. I will say that. Yeah, it really did.
Wow. That is amazing. Teresa always always talks about how it's the breakdown to break through, like her and her husband, Mark. And like,
we always talk about that.
Hearing you say that, you know, we've talked about it on the podcast many times, but you're so right. Like we get to this point in everything, like in manifestation, in relationships, in friendships, in work, and like in life, we get to a point that feels like such a brick wall. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is it. It's done. Like I'm not. And then if you just keep moving forward towards exactly what it is that you want, like it's amazing how much more is opened up for you. And I just love hearing that story, because I think a lot of times we get overwhelmed with the narrative that I am this, I am not successful, I'm not being seen, I don't move the meter, I can't get a promotion. Like there's so much that we take on as our narrative. And if we could only change that narrative in, you know, the way of like seeing, no, I'm actually now I'm free. I'm able to move forward. I can do what I've always wanted to do. Like, why have I let this stand in my way? So anyway, I love hearing that. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, this movie Continue and the process of it. You know, I started watching your film and I was like, wow, this is such a powerful message. I was looking up immediately, like, what is the suicide rate right now in America? And found out that it was higher than it's ever been at any point in history in America last year. And I do feel like we're seeing so much more, like, I'm like, is it because of social media or TV or like whatever it is that we're seeing so many more of these stories come up? It just, you kind of always wonder, like, why does it feel like it's just happening more or we're seeing more of it? But then after looking that up, I was like, the suicide rate is so high, and we're in such a desperate, time in which like our mental health care in America is not, in terms of like what's covered by insurance and what's available to you. And like when you need therapy or when you need postpartum help, like with postpartum depression and those conversations and like all of this, when, pertaining to motherhood, any kind of mental health for our children, like teens, all of this. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about your organization and the movie and your message and how it's helped you. Did it help you heal through this process?
Yeah, I mean, you just touched on like everything that fueled me for continue on, truthfully, is that the statistics have raised through the roof, especially after the pandemic. One of the highest numbers in death by suicide now is our youth, starting at ages 9, which like to me,
God,
yeah, it makes me kind of sick to even say it. And I always almost cry when I say that, because there was two people close to me who lost, close friends that were 9 years old. And to me, it's like, how on earth can we believe that our life doesn't matter at 9? Like, you should be playing on a jungle gym and you should be like figuring out, I don't know, like life in such an innocent way. I can't imagine, and truthfully, yes, the prices of healthcare, and I have 2 PPO insurances because of my unions, and I was recently looking for healthcare professionals for myself, going through a time of struggle, and I couldn't afford them. It was like $675 per 30 minutes, but your first session had to be an hour long. No one takes insurance. Everyone's prices are about exactly the same.
No one takes insurance.
None. And especially no one that's recommended to you that's supposed to be really good, So like a lot of my friends in the mental health world are like, no, this person is unbelievable. This person's none took insurance. So it really got me going. Like, if I can't afford this, how on earth would like our youth be able to afford it? Or the parents, who are like all of a sudden facing that their kid, like, that they need to get their child help. And like, we don't all have the means to pay something like that. So for me, it was like, okay, I can't stand by and watch anymore, with Continue. My entire mission was suicide prevention and elevating mental health, the entire journey of me trying to make that film, everyone told me no one wants to talk about this. No one wants to talk about suicide. You know, it's like a taboo subject. And I just was like, I disagree with you. Yeah. It was like, but that's why we need to do it. I want to continue
exactly right.
to shatter the stigma. If we don't, and we don't continue to talk about it, all these people, like I felt, feel like a burden, feel like something's wrong with them, feel like the only person in the world that must be feeling this way. And it's just so not true. I can tell you as an advocate who now so many people come to because I'm so vocal about my past and my struggles. My story is so not unique. It isn't. Like there are so many similar stories, so many friends that I didn't know had attempted to take their lives when they were young, or, you know, so it's just like it fueled this fire in me with the film. And I had donated all of my points from writing continue to charities that already exist. And my biggest dream for a very long time was to create my own nonprofit, but that's really, really expensive. And so like I just saved and chipped away in any way I could to finally continue on, because I really wanted to launch it with the film. And my entire initiative for that is to continue to elevate other filmmakers' voices around suicide prevention and mental health. I want to help elevate other people's stories again, so people can realize they're not alone, and, you know, and also help other people achieve their dreams. Because I know that there isn't a lot of places where people are like, yeah, let's talk about suicide and mental health. So I'm like, great, I'll create my own then. And that is to fuel to get me to my biggest initiative, which will take time, is to create a subsidy that gets mental health services for our youth and underprivileged youth. If they don't have money, for the services, I want to match them with a healthcare provider in their area, and I want to pay for 100% of the services.
Oh, amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's our mission. We're just, you know, you got to grow and keep building until we get there.
I so appreciate your willingness to go there, even though you had so many people saying, it's not a good idea. Like, no one's going to see this. No one wants to talk about it. It's too dark. The material's too dark. My very first film that I was ever in was directed by an 18-year-old guy, and it was about youth suicide. And we all played 18-year-olds, loosely based on a true story. It happened to the director's friend. And it ended up premiering at Cannes. And it was my very first movie. And I'm at Cannes. I'm like, oh my God. But it was so dark and so hard. And people still talk about how challenging it was to watch. And I remember doing the press all the way back then when I was 18. And no one wanted to focus on the suicide aspect of the film. They were talking about so many other areas. And I'm like, but this whole film is about suicide. I mean, this is what the film's about. And it's a subject that's so brushed under the carpet because makes people really uncomfortable, especially when we're talking about young people ending their lives. And so I really think it's so wonderful that you have put a voice to these stories, because there are so many people who suffer in silence. And, you know, I grew up with a mother who has schizoaffective disorder, and we grew up in Australia. So my mum would have episodes and go to hospital and come back. And my husband, being American, one time when my mum was having a really challenging episode, I could ring a phone number in Australia and 3 people immediately turned up to the house. There was a psychiatrist, there was a psychologist, there was a therapist. We all broke it down with my mum. We talked through everything. They got her little suitcase together. They worked with the family. She went to hospital and she was in hospital there, all free. Didn't pay for anything. And these are the services that we have. And I remember Mark being like, what the fuck is that? And he still talks about it. He's like, and then 3 people turned up and they just took us to this hospital. And then she was so happy. And my mom had this really good transition to hospital and she felt like really supported. And he's like, that does not exist in our country.
No,
it just does not.
It
exist.
doesn't. It really
I mean, some
doesn't.
people call the police and then you're even like scared because you're like, well, now what are they going to do to me? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's
arrest you.
We don't arrest you. Like, they don't have we talk about that all the time. Like there is no infrastructure for that here. There is no like, you know, there's definitely you can call, there's like, you know, numbers that you can call, but we don't have to where somebody's going to come and show up and walk you through and then take you somewhere like
pack your
without paying like crazy amount of money.
That is insane.
It's free, guys.
Well, and not to mention, like in America, also, if you have a 5150 on your record, like people won't hire you, and that follows you everywhere. So it's like, not only do we not have help, do we not have someone there to help us pack our bags or to do anything nice? Like, and are you paying? I'm, you know, like imagine in my 20s having to pay the medical bills from going into you know, hospital after. Yeah. It just like, it's insane. But then on top of that, it follows you forever and people like don't want to hire you because they're like, oh, you know,
she's unstable.
Yeah. She must be unstable.
Yeah.
She has, and you know, it's just like, that is exactly like what we have to fight against, you know? I can't even. That's so beautiful, though, to hear that other countries actually do handle it right. Like it gives you hope that like someday we might get there.
Yeah. And of course, you know, Australia has a much smaller population than America. I understand all these things. But to have my American husband be so blown away by that service, it's like there is such a gap, isn't there? There's such a gap in the system. And it takes people like you, though, to raise their voices, like, make noise about it. You have to make noise, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Like it just has to be spoken about. And the process of making your movie, I'm sure it must have felt really cathartic as well. What was that experience like? Do you feel like there was simultaneous healing going on as you were spreading this message? You were healing some deep, like fundamental wounds?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know that I like realized it in the mix of it as much as I did after, because I think in the mix of it, you're going through production, which is essentially a new form of trauma. but it really was, because I think what it did was made me stop thinking of like myself and the effects on me and really start thinking about other people and who I wanted it to help. So it became a lot more about all of us than like just necessarily my process. And again, like now through watching these actors embody it, and like, again, like I am the lead actor, but isn't it funny that I like talk about it like I'm not, like that wasn't me. Like, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't. Even how I prep things as an actor is not like, I'm not method. I didn't bring my own life. I created my own backstory that was very separate. And I did make the film. There are dramatized version, like parts about it that are a little different than my story, because for storytelling device, like it was a lot more helpful. Like in my own personal life, I lost my grandfather to suicide, and me and my father have talked about it all my life. But the only way I could have it come out of my mouth is if it was like, I, you know, took my father's words and was able to communicate that. And so in the film, it was my father, not my grandfather. And, you know, so there's like little things like that along the way that I could disconnect a little bit enough to let it be her story and someone else's. And truthfully, when you're watching someone go through this transition and you're seeing it and you're seeing their change, like you can't help but change yourself, you know, and feel like the whole point of the movie, as dark as it is, and that, you know, I hope that people will see that, is that I'm trying to say there's hope all around us. And like the whole message, even down to the ending of my film, you know, I'm not sure if you got that far yet, but I had to fight really hard for the ending of the film. Everyone wanted it to be more Hollywood, and they didn't, you know, but the ending was my point. Like the way that I wrap up the film is the message, which is like, I need you to give it one more day, you know, like essentially I wouldn't have anything I have today. Like I wouldn't have my son. I wouldn't be a wife. Like none of this would be here. And all these lives I have been a part of, I would have never met any of these people. I would have never met you guys, Rachel and Olivia, you know, all of these things. So that's the message, you know? So through trying to make sure that even in the darkness of the film, you see the hope, it really has changed my perspective to always try and find the hope, even in my darkest times, you know? So like, even through that filmmaking lens, I now find myself looking at that through my life, you know, and again, it like comes down to the universe. It's like the lessons I've learned since from then till now, like even through making this film, like it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And like the pandemic hit right as I was trying to finish it. And yeah, we had to like, you know, I used to be embarrassed to say this, but I'm not anymore. We lived with my parents for the first time since I was 15 years old, so that I could take what we were paying in rent to pay to finish the film slowly but surely. Yeah. So like me and my family literally, and I look at that even as a blessing because we lived in a 1-bedroom on Beechwood. Like we got to live with my parents in Fresno with a yard and like space during the pandemic when we couldn't leave anywhere.
And I bet they loved it. I bet they were like, yay, come home. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and I was driving back and forth to finish the film. And so like the entire process was really crazy. But again, my change in perspective of who I am today, but also through the lessons the universe keeps teaching me, is that every hardship I've gone through has ended up leading to the place my path was supposed to go to. Like I think I have it figured out. I'm like, no. We go to Sundance, we do this, we sell here, and like, we're done, you know? And it's like, that's not the journey. And, you know, we ended up getting a no, and I got a yes from somewhere else. And then I met a filmmaker there that I really connect with, who's just as passionate about mental health. He had a mental health film, and he introduces me to my mentor, my best friend, and the producer of my next 2 films, Robbie Brenner, who is the producer of Barbie, Dallas Buyers Club, like literally nominated for an Oscar. Yeah, Robbie Brenner has changed my entire life. But again, so that's what I always say. Like, if I had gone to any other festival, if I had never met him, if I had never, you know, so it's like these little setbacks that we think we are like, you know, I just remember being like, why are you like, why does this have to be hard? Like, weren't those years hard enough? This is easy. Like, fuck, you know, and like screaming out, like, come on.
Yeah. My husband just went through that too with his film. He was like, it's definitely going to Sundance. And then it was like, it was a no. And then we're like, wait, what? But then it's like pivot. And now he's got a new idea of where it's going. And, you know, and you just pivot and you trust. So, all right, that wasn't the path for it. There's a new path. And look what happened. It led you to meet all these incredible life-changing people.
Exactly. Well, and even through like, if I had just gone to maybe the Sundance or whatever, it would have been one festival. I ended up now, we've played it like, this is a made up number. I don't actually know how many it's been now, but like 15, right? And we've won awards at all of these different festivals. And I've met audiences of people. We just got back from Mammoth, and
you won Best Director and Best Achievement in First Time Filmmaking.
I get a little emotional even as you say that, because it's like, man,
I know, sure.
It's been such a journey. But even that, like, I don't think Olivia and Rachel hadn't been a screening yet, like with other people. So like afterwards, like obviously we're all shook, because like I even get shook when I watch it. It's been so long. Yeah, it's been 2 years since I've seen it, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so people come up after and they're, you know, just full disclosure, they're sobbing and they're telling me about their loss and they're telling me about their story. And there's like, you know, a line of people who want to share their story. And like, and I think they were like, oh, wow. And I'm like, this is why I did it. Like, this is why I do it, you know, because it helps people, you know, like, and that's why, you know, we continue to fight the good fight to get our little indies out there, you know?
I love it so much. You've planted these seeds of healing for people, because I think it's so easy to squash feelings down or ignore them or just soldier on. But then sometimes it takes some moving piece of art that unlocks something within you that means that you can actually tap into some of that trauma and start to begin the process of healing. And this is what you're offering up for people. And so it's actually changing lives, which is incredible. And I can't wait for you and my husband to get together and talk, because like this is his passion with filmmaking as well. It's like, independent film is so important. Like people show up and go to the big Marvel movies and they go and have these extraordinary experiences watching these big films. And it's just as important to show up for our indie filmmakers. And go and find these like beautiful, like poetic pieces of art that really change people's lives. And I understand the like passion and the drive to keep telling those stories because they're just so important. Nadine, do you know what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, you know how it goes in La La Land of like, I think I do. But yeah, I'm supposed to be leaving very soon, and we're in the like final processes of attachments of like cast to my film that Robbie Brenner and Mark Forrester are producing. It's a project that Robbie's had for actually 25 years, and Mark was originally directing it, and then they bestowed the gift to me, and
oh my gosh,
Mark stayed on to produce it, and I just feel so lucky. And and Michael Merriman, Robbie's husband, is my DP, and so it's just like we have this little family. Also, Rich Delia, I don't know if you guys know him, the best casting director in the world, but like
amazing,
love Rich.
Yes, he has made like casting fun, even when you get a no or something. It's like when you have your little team and your family, and like we all just like keep the faith of like the mission, and honestly, it's another like it's another gritty and kind of sad story and about
my favorite.
Like,
I love it.
I will have happy films eventually, but they're always going to be kind of sad.
I never want to act. I never want to act in happy things. I'm like, they're like, what do you want to do next? It's like something dark, drama.
Not
like,
me. I'm like, can I do a comedy?
Yeah, she's the opposite. She's like, I want comedy. I'm like, I want trauma. Give me trauma. It's crazy.
I'll be the light in the darkness. How's that?
I was just about to say, well, I know exactly how I will cast when we get to work together. I'm like, okay, Sarah will be our hope. Teresa will be going through it.
I'll be like,
she's going through it. Girlfriend's going through it.
And I will hold both of your hands while we do it. And I just have to say this about Mark too, is like every time because I listen to your guys' podcast, I love the episodes. I love that like they're all so different. And but Mark is so inspiring. I like went and looked up on one of the last episodes and was like, how do I get him to be my coach? Like, because you just,
oh my God,
his advice.
Yes, he's doing it now. He's mentoring people. He's like traveling around. He's got students. Amazing. I mean, it's amazing. He's incredible. But you guys are going to be friends. I just can feel the vibes. I'm like, you two need to meet and be friends.
You definitely do.
I would love that.
Amazing. We talk a lot about woo-woo on our podcast because now we're in this space woo-woo of like spirituality, manifestation, and just like, I think as women, like tapping into this thing that's always been in us, like this intuition is so important. I was reading something that you wrote about manifesting this life with you and your partner and your child and everything. Do you believe in manifestation? Do you believe in that sort of like following your intuitive voice, your higher self? Can you talk a little bit about that and what that's meant to you?
This is like actually my favorite subject. This is what all of your guys' episodes on manifesting is where I'm like, okay. Like when you were like the not, I remember when I used to like bring in the things I didn't want, and I'm like, wait, I don't think this is how this works.
It doesn't work that
way. And honestly, you guys know, like Olivia Allen is my mind ninja. Like she gets me very aligned, and like when I'm manifesting, her and I will do like a Zoom and I'll like say it out loud and she'll see it for me. Like we've actually like, and Teresa, there was, I was reading this article on you talking about your dream of going to the Oscars and when you went for Hacksaw Ridge. And it reminded me of, because that's been my dream since I was a little girl. And like Olivia has listened to my speech and seen it for me. And like, we're bawling.
Amazing.
I mean like,
oh my God.
Crying. And I'm like, oh my God. Lord. And I'm like, but like,
oh my God. Maybe we'll be
it.
there together for the same project because I've written my speech as well.
You just gave me chills. I'm so ready for it.
It's happening.
It's happening. I know I'm going to go put those on my vision board downstairs. I literally have like a whole wall that is like, I kind of went back to being a kid of like this time I did the pictures and everything like you guys have talked about. And like, we all know sometimes it's just a feeling, or it's like, I have a picture of me and Robbie on the wall of like that friendship, just like the reminder. And But then I went almost like a kid and I like did like bubble art, like, you know, block letters and wrote out the titles to all of my scripts I've written. And, you know,
that's cool.
Yeah. Cause I'm just like, I need to remind myself. And so like, I tried to like go back to that innocence of when you thought anything was possible. And truthfully, like, I mean, manifesting and intuition, and my intuition is why I am where I am today. Like even down to one of my favorite stories is about Continue, and it's why Continue exists right now. It's, I was sitting in Jones on 3rd and I was with a friend and she was giving me notes and my husband was there and our baby is strapped to him and he's like bouncing while we talk so that I could have like an adult moment.
I love it.
Yes. And I was actually there for a different script because I write a lot and I have like, that is my vessel for, it's the thing no one can take from me. Like, sure, you might not make it. Yeah, sure, you can't do that, but I can control my own creativity, and I can write something at any point that makes me feel moved. Right.
Yes.
And so my friend goes, this script is amazing, but what I need to know is what's happening with Continue. And I just like kind of smiled. And I was like, you know, I've been really trying to work up the courage to send it to Cassie and Elway's. You know, we worked together. I was an actress on this movie, Cabin Fever. It was like a remake. And we met on set. And I was like, you know, we just really hit it off. He really liked me. And I just feel like if I could run into him and he could remember who I am because it's been so long, like, I feel like if I could run into him and we could reconnect, then I could send it to him. Then he'll take the time to read it because he gets so many scripts, you know?
Yes.
And he walks in the door.
No.
At that exact second. Like,
Stop it.
I cannot.
I'm in my face, I go, and I'm like, you guys, my hands are shaking. They're like this at this point.
Oh my God.
And I'm like,
oh my
Cassie
God.
just walked in the door. Cause like neither of them really knew what he looked like. And they're like, what?
Oh
and I'm
my
like, don't look right
God.
now because he's looking at me and we're making really long eye contact. And then he turned and walks. Like, you know, when someone looks at you like, how do I know you? And I'm like, you know me. And he's like, but how do I know? You know, it was like this whole moment.
Yes.
And so I went to the bathroom, hands trembling, and was like, all right, if he gives me another window to come up to him, because I'm very respectful. Like even if the universe gave me that gift, if I could tell he didn't want to talk to me, I would have respected that. And so he's typing on his phone and I'm walking back from the bathroom and I'm like, oh man, he's not going to look. Oh man. All right. And right as I'm about to pass, he looks up and makes eye contact with me and is like, you know, like kind of like, how do I know you? And so I went up to him, we talk, he comes and meets my baby and my husband. And
oh my God.
I sent him the script that night. And like, honestly, Cassian, you know, I had to prove myself but he let me use his name, which, you know, what is the reason that the movie came together. You know, Cassian is like the independent king. And, you know, so yeah, again, it's like all those little things. And I had his name on my wall for 3 years before that. I had his picture on my wall. I had again, I was just saying it out loud and he walked in the damn door. And by the way,
God, I love this shit.
Yes.
Me
one
too.
more story though, because you're going to love this, is Robbie Brenner. It's actually my husband's fault. I love him. And he read Matthew McConaughey's book. And he was like, there's this producer, Robbie Brenner, and he raves about her. And I looked into her and he was basically like, you need to work with Robbie Brenner. And so I started doing my own deep dive and seeing that she's stayed on Dallas Buyers Club for like 25 years. She's stayed on, you know, she's just like a believer and she does not give up on people, projects, anything. She's like a woman of integrity, right? And so I was like, that is who I want to work with. And because I've been really trying to call in women. I had never really had women in my life. So I was like, you know what? These are the years of female relationships, of women. And so I had her on Post-its on my walls, her name. And again, I go to lunch with that one filmmaker and her name had been on my walls already for some period of time. I tell him how I work with Cassian, who worked on Dallas Buyers Club, that I'm working and, you know Rachel Winter and, you know, Dorothy Canton and some amazing female producers. And he was like, but do you know Robbie Brenner yet? And I was like, Don't get me started. Like, don't get me started. She's on my wall. I can show you Post-it notes. Like, that's my next goal. And he was like, why? And I told him my why. And
that's so interesting that he said why. That's so interesting.
He was like, well, why is it so specific to her? Like, why is she on your walls? And I was like, well, Cassian was on my walls before I worked with Cassian too. And it was just like, and then I went into why. And he didn't say anything else. And we changed the subject. And when I got home, like an hour later, he had connected me by email to Robbie Brenner.
Get out. What?
I cannot.
I can't. I've got goosebumps everywhere.
That's full body chills. Full body chills. I mean, I cannot believe there are still people out there who are like, I don't know, these are all coincidences. It's not. It works. It's real, guys. Like, how much more proof do you need? Like, how validating.
So validating.
And I felt it in my bones. I was like, I am supposed to work with this person. Like, I know it. And also, when I sent her the email, like, she sent me an email back, but I hadn't seen it because I was typing my love letter. This is who I am. Like, when I am passionate about someone, I'm like, I don't hold anything back. I'm like, here's who I am. Here's my heart. I hope you'll give me the opportunity to sit with you.
Yes.
And so her email back to me, and like, Robbie, I say this with love. Her email back to me was like, yeah, great. We'll have to get together sometime. And it was like, I don't know if she would have ever met with me. But 33 seconds later, I had pushed send on mine without seeing that. And mine was a love letter. And within like moments, she wrote me back that it was like the nicest email she had ever received, that my trailer was incredible, that I'm so brave. We have to meet we have to meet. She gave me a date for the next week. And we were there almost 4 hours.
Goosebumps again.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were there
4
almost 4
hours
hours talking. She has been my mentor, my closest friend ever since that day. And she describes me as like a soul. When you just meet a soul and that they're supposed to be in your life forever. And I'm like, I knew it,
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm so glad I asked that question. What amazing stories that came from that. Cause I just had a feeling that like after reading what it is that you wrote, it was like on your Instagram, but I was like, I feel like she's very like woo-woo like us.
Oh, so woo-woo.
And you were saying like, even today on the podcast, you kept talking about the universe. I'm like, she's one of us. She's one of us.
She's one of us.
Literally.
I love it. Oh my God.
I just know that you are even at the beginning of the most remarkable next level experiences. Like, you are going to have all the things, you're going to call in all the things. I am so excited for you. I feel like my whole body is vibrating with happiness for you because you deserve it. You deserve it. And I just cannot wait to watch you on this journey. It's amazing.
Yeah, me too.
And thank you for just doing the work that you do as someone who has a lot of mental health in my family, and I've navigated it my whole life with the people very close to me. I just really appreciate your authenticity and sharing your story and just being the beautiful, incredible woman that you are. So thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you. And I just want to say too, because like one of your recent episodes, you were talking about like kind of how you knew you were in a funk and it took like, you know what I mean? It was so inspiring for me to hear, because I feel like there's a lot of fear for me. Like, oh no, I don't want to go back to depression. I don't want to feel that. Or I'll just try and keep it moving. Or more so, it's like, I know we all feel this of like, we're all moms. We don't have time for like maybe what we're feeling inside, because we're trying to do 1,000 things. Yes. You guys have the podcast, you have this, you have that. And it was just so relatable hearing so many of the things that you guys speak about. But when you said that too, because a lot of times it'll be my husband who's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. And he's like, well, you seem like you are irritated at me all day. And you seem like, and I've watched you cry at like 6 commercials. And like, are you sure?
Yeah. I love having that person who will be the mirror, who will be like, I just want to check in. This is how I'm feeling. I love it, because my husband doesn't let me get away with any of it. Like, he'll be like, no, we're talking about it. No, we're diving into this. I'm like, oh, okay, fine.
But how lucky to have such a great partner. That's incredible.
it's raw. It's like sometimes I feel, because my partner's the same, and I sometimes will feel very like, oh, he sees it. Like he sees, how did he see it? You know what I mean? Like, how did he know? I thought I was so good at like
doing
covering it up and just I'm just like soldiering on today. And he's like, whoa.
Yeah,
we need to like
that.
take a beat. We need to talk. So anyway, yeah, that's so awesome. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your amazing message with all of us and our daisies. And I cannot believe that we are at the time in which we're saying goodbye, but you are incredible. And thank you. Everybody go check out Nadine's movies. You can follow along on her Instagram. Do you want to tell us where to find you and where to find your films?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's at Nadine Crocker, my first and last name. And then all I do is post about continue on. So yeah, it's continue.org on Instagram for our nonprofit. And then Continue the Film is the Instagram handle. We come out finally. We have, we're ending our festival run and coming out into theaters and on demand. It sounds like near the end of June. We were trying for May for Mental Health Awareness Month, but delivery is a hell of a process. So very soon I will finally get to share this like 10-year journey. So, thanks for the support.
Oh, you're incredible. Thank you so much, Nadine. You guys have been listening to The Mother Days. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Bye.
Bye, daisies.